Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Waste World podcast. My name is Stephanie Valentic, and I'm the editor-in-chief here at waste360.com. Each week, Gage and I will be joined by professionals, influencers, and community members for in-depth discussions on the world of waste. By the way, Gage, I haven't spoken to you a while. We've both been traveling for these trade shows and conferences to learn more about the industry. How have you been?
I've been pretty good. Just chilling, went to Louisville and hold on, I'll get my camera on here. Hopefully I'm not offending anyone in Louisville by saying this, but we traveled to a lot of cities. I'm a big foodie. I didn't really care for the Louisville spread. Didn't really do anything for me. I don't know if you've been.
Really?
I think they're lower on the list of what I've had.
What about the bourbon though? You had to have a little bit bourbon there, didn't you?
I did not do any bourbon tastings. I was overwhelmed with options. I was like, you know what? I cannot keep up with what is here. Maybe next time. But yeah, nothing food wise. I think lower on the scale for me. I won't give a true rating because I haven't been everywhere, but lower on the scale.
Oh, really? That's surprising. I've been there a few times. I mean, you get some good Southern comfort food there in Kentucky. So
that was the idea, and it just didn't go my way.
Well, today we're heading over to Illinois to talk about recycling education. On this week's episode, we're joined by Jeff Galad, president of Recycle Coach, and James Jennings, director of the Illinois EPA, to talk about their new partnership to educate the general public, its state's residents, about recycling. So are you ready to start this, Gage?
Let's get into it.
Awesome. The great thing today, my background is actually from the MRF in Chicago, from the LRS MRF that was just built a couple of years ago. So I'm super, just being able to speak with you today about Illinois and recycling education, the partnerships and the collaboration that's needed to progress the industry forward is going to be, a great conversation here. So welcome to Waste World today. Yeah. And we have Thanksgiving coming up. So do you have any fun plans or anything that you have going on?
Hopefully it'll be fun plans. So just doing family stuff. It'll be nice to get away for a couple of days, but nothing earth shattering.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a different Thanksgiving than U.S. here in Canada, but I grew up on a U.S. border city, so I feel like I'm entitled to celebrate both Thanksgivings and have turkey twice and get ready for shopping and watch football. So
you have my approval.
Thank you. I'm an honorary American and make sure I celebrate both Thanksgivings.
There you go.
Do you use leftover gravy for poutine?
I've been known to do that, or a hot turkey sandwich. So ooh. Yeah. So and stuffing, lots of stuffing.
I didn't know they had leftover gravy in Canada. Y'all just gets reused for poutine, in my opinion.
We like our gravy, that's for sure. James, do you like poutine? You've been up here.
I do, yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's the best. Gotta be authentic though. It can't be shredded cheese. It's gotta be cheese curds.
You gotta do the curds, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Have to do the curds. Well, with the Thanksgiving holiday too, there's a lot of talk about food waste and what can and can't be recycled. James, do you have any comments on that? Like, what does the state typically do for education and letting the state residents know about recycling and food waste and all that good stuff during the holidays?
Yeah, so I mean, Illinois is unique in that we have both a very engaged series of state agencies in this arena, but also the combination of city of Chicago and the collar counties around Cook County, which is where Chicago is, have incredibly invested local solid waste agencies. And 6 years ago, we started partnering with them to identify a series of informational gaps statewide so that we were both coordinating messaging, but then also working to put together some pretty narrowly tailored localized information. And so to that end, what we've done since then is that we have an environmental education team in-house. We've hired a social media coordinator as well, and they work with our various program areas to put together social media content as well as other outward-facing materials that are both relevant based on the time of year, but also are statewide accurate. And so in anticipation of the holidays, we've built out a series of tools that identify things like common contaminants and recycling and how to avoid them, pushing people in the direction for more commonly recoverable items that can't go in curbside. But then also we rely heavily on those local partners, recognizing that in many instances they are the contract holders for their recycling and waste hauling entities, so they're going to be uniquely situated to be able to specifically address constituent concerns. And so how we view it is that they have the tailored local information. We're able to take a broader statewide approach. But that was one of the things that made the partnership with Recycle Coach so appetizing, is that there are some gaps there. There's a lot of neighborhood almost comparison. And so we wanted to be able to help fill some of that space while also addressing the needs of other communities that don't have that really robust local government network.
Well, so James, can you let's talk a little bit about the state of recycling in Illinois. What does it look like? How have regulations changed in the past few years, especially with China Sword? We're kind of, now we're really starting to build up the infrastructure. You're seeing a lot of new facilities opening up across the country.
Yeah, so as a general matter, Illinois is a bit unique in that we regulate recycling at the state level. The way a lot of our solid waste authority is characterized is around the binary decision of whether something is a waste or not. And if it's not a waste, as a matter of state law, it's been historically treated as a commercial activity that doesn't fall within our authorities. That though introduces a natural blind spot, and triggered in part by some very invigorated stakeholder work, as well as things like National Sword. 6 years ago, we became much more invested in addressing statewide recycling concerns. And since then, what we've been working on is we put together, in conjunction with the Illinois chapter of the National Waste and Recycling Association, as well as a very diverse collection of local government partners, a working group that is tasked with continually evaluating the state of recycling in Illinois, putting together materials to ensure that, to the extent that people are seeing an increase in contaminants or have identified a viable end market for materials that otherwise weren't easily recoverable, that's shared so that we can best use the collective resources of the state and also work to minimize the impacts on landfill capacity. Illinois, unlike some of our East Coast counterparts, doesn't have an immediate landfill capacity issue, but our existing capacity is approximately 20 to 25 years, and that's at least a tangible number. And so what we're seeing right now is that we're seeing a heightened level of engagement at the local level, as well as a real drive to try to push the expansion of some of these newer facilities like compost facilities, particularly those that can accept food scrap. And what our role is both as to serve as a facilitator, to provide people a forum to help work toward that expansion. We've been fortunate that we've had funding available, both state funding and then through the Biden-Harris administration, unprecedented federal funding that we've been able to secure and then serve as a pass-through. And so to that end, we've been more engaged on trying to help support infrastructure expansion and additional educational work. One of the areas that for us, based on our existing authority, that we had a very clear opening was our ability to provide broad public education. And recognizing that we'd worked with some stakeholders to identify some of our own natural limitations. We had some historic information on our website helping direct people to recycling opportunities locally, but there were opportunities to do more. And we're very excited that not only did we have the funding to do this, but we were able to step into a place that we're going to have a very real statewide approach to locally driven recycling education.
Now, James, is there a worry in Illinois that the landfills will reach capacity sooner because of all the White Sox jerseys being thrown away?
I mean, that's a good question. So I'm a Cubs fan, so I don't know, but I'm also a Bears season ticket holder, and I can very confidently say that I think that would be a potential driver for particularly some of the northern landfills.
Good to know. Good to know.
And that's really interesting because you mentioned that, and this I do hear commonly among other, in other states and other people that we talk to in the industry is that, we have the landfill capacity, but what we're doing is trying to shift that thinking, because 20 to 25 years down the line, if we don't get ahead of the game, we're not, that land's going to, be filled up. We're going to have an issue where we have the methane emissions are going to go up. We have GHG emissions that we need to bring down. We need to decarbonize. We need to we just need to rethink everything. And a lot of that is, changing the way we think about consumption, and also, using that tech and innovation and partnerships and education to be able to bring all of these things together to inform the public about how things are recycled. As Gage and I always bring up, we weren't in the industry prior to being on Waste 360, and just taking that first step in the facility and seeing what happens once your trash leaves the curb is, it's just going to cause so much behavior change. You're going to want to know more about the industry. You're going to know more about what happens when you throw away things. So, Jeff, Recycle Coach, can you tell us a little bit about how tech and innovation can be, used to educate the general public about recycling and why it's important?
Yeah, for sure. It's great to be here with you guys. I think if we look back at our journey as a software business, we've always wanted to help address local government challenges. And that started with an emphasis on modernizing what day is my garbage day? What day do I put my bin on the curb? To obviously the need for a better domestic recycling system, reducing contamination. And that's how we became Recycle Coaches. We wanted to work with our municipality and our county partners for the challenges they were facing. We are a software company at our core, but with a push into the environmental space. And so what I think Illinois has done, and it's admirable, is that they've leveled the playing field for every community, every municipality, and every county or solid waste industry. And I'll tell you, it's not small potatoes. It's 102 counties and 1,299 municipalities. And so what the Illinois EPA through James' leadership has done is they've removed a huge barrier to access to modernize how you communicate out those waste and recycling rules. And it's really important that Recycle Coach as a company, we remain waste agnostic, legislatively agnostic, and service provider agnostic. Our solution is to pull in all of that data, all of that hyperlocal information on all waste programs in a community, and present it in a really interactive way to the end user. And that's the residents of those communities. And what the benefit of the Illinois EPA now is, within the next year or so, as we onboard all of those municipalities and counties, is a bird's eye view of what configuration is across all of those municipalities. Who accepts black plastic? Who accepts glass? Who's doing pilots in alternative recycling and hard to recycle materials? Who's onboarding composting? And so no more, clunky surveys and Excel documents going out and hoping people are going to do it. And we're replacing that, the historic PDFs or calendars that are just posted and hard to find on government websites, and then obviously through a mobile app. And so the education piece is, once we have all that hyperlocal data, that configuration of that local program, we're able to turn it into learning activities through our technology. So different quiz type questions, video series, blogs, listicles, picture taps, things like that, that are engaging because, everybody, and you nailed this, Stephanie, is they want to know the yes, but why? Why when I lived in another state or another municipality, could I put, greasy pizza boxes in my blue bin and now I can't, and vice versa? And so we feel it's our responsibility to also help understand the why, and that the why is changing. Recycling programs are in different models and different capabilities, and truthfully are fluid. And so helping our users, the residents that use our technology, understand it's okay, there's a change, and things might be accepted at one point, might not be, or new things are accepted. And so we're really excited to be a part of that journey with the state of Illinois.
So just curious, where does a collaboration like this start? I mean, at the bottom, we can say we need to do this. We identified the problem. We know that, recycling is, there's not one catch-all solution. As you mentioned, it varies locality to locality, to state to state. Where does this collaboration start? When did these talks first start between the state and Recycle Coach?
So my initial introduction to Recycle Coach was at a conference that it was pre-pandemic, which now feels like
forever ago.
Yeah, an unimaginable amount of time ago. But prior to that, the agency had two things that were working in tandem. There was a bill passed shortly before the pandemic that required the agency to do what amounted to a statewide needs assessment for the entire materials management infrastructure. And as part of that, identify how we would go from our waste generation diversion rates that time to some statutorily prescribed figures by 2035, 2040, 2045. And one component of that was enhancing our internal bandwidth for education, and then more broadly, building a climate within the state where there were robust materials available to help people, among other things, recycle effectively and as broad a scale as possible. And so it was against that backdrop that I'd attended a conference in Austin, and Jeff presented there and provided an overview of what Recycle Coach had done at a local level, what they were working on with some other states. And so we've maintained some communication going back and forth, and then we're exploring what potential types of partnerships are available. As a matter of state law, I mean, government purchasing is always potentially difficult. And so we had on the state level had to do a lot of due diligence to be able to verify the extent to which this was a type of transaction that would lend itself to a direct contract, or whether we would have to do procurement because of the availability of broader resources. And ultimately what we found is that the work that Jeff and his team have been doing is so unique and so specialized that we were able to build off of those initial discussions effectively. And ultimately that culminated in us being able to execute this award and then get started earlier this year.
Oh, I was just going to say, and you know, we have to give a good shout out to the great team in New Jersey. We've been live in the state with support from their DEP for the last 8 years across the state there as well, and so they really have set a really important, you know, leadership in the space again to level that playing field for their communities. And so we're incredibly grateful to both agencies, but we're at about 85% adoption across the state of New Jersey now. And with the enthusiasm of you know, James's colleagues at the solid waste districts and municipalities who are, you know, working hard in this space, I think there could be some friendly competition that Illinois may even grow faster. So I'm putting that out there in the universe.
I'm actually super curious. You know, we talk a lot about tech and how we're using it to, you know, educate and drive innovation, but you know, in areas like, I mean, to municipalities such as Detroit, where you have this large digital divide, how is education provided to residents, and where do you get buy-in from them in terms of being able to change their behavior and recycle better?
I think we're very lucky. Our users, the people who use Recycle Coach, they come to us for two reasons. One is they want us to make their lives easier, and that's where, you know, it's important that if you do have curbside collection, that's part of your Recycle Coach configuration because of those reminders. We've heard at conferences recycling coordinators say that Recycle Coach saved marriages because nobody missed a collection again and nobody got blamed for putting their bin out. And that was at our core. That's how we really started, was calendars and that piece. But I think, you know, people who work in local government, they're incredibly crafty. They're incredibly resourceful, and especially in the waste area, their budgets tend to get cut first. So they really have to think outside the box. And, you know, we provide infrastructure and we provide, you know, lots of marketing resources to get them to that kind of ready to go. They have to hit post, they have to hit go, they have to work with those local partnerships. But our most successful cities are the ones that cultivate local partnerships with other types of groups. And, you know, we've had counties that had a more, for example, a more elderly population that had onboarded us. So they might not be the biggest in mobile adoption. So we trained the librarians on how to use Recycle Coach so that if somebody from the community came into the library, they could show them on the library computer Recycle Coach. And so it's about, I mean, that just took time and a little bit of, you know, elbow grease. And so it's about, you know, you look at, you know, cities like Detroit or, you know, more rural cities, it's about really knowing your community and then layering in probably with a lot of the things you're already doing, but having that call to action back to your digital tool. So for the latest, check Recycle Coach. We see a lot, especially around weather changes, in different press releases from, you know, good comms teams at the municipal level of, for the latest information, check Recycle Coach. Not everybody's watching the 7 a.m. news anymore to get those details on what's happening with public works in their community. So I think there's some just amazing coordinators and leadership in the municipal space across, you know, the US and of course here in Canada, but that are just really know their market, know their people. And Recycle Coach doesn't come in to replace all of those activities. There's still tons of community outreach and speaking engagements, but it's another tool in their toolbox that's easy to say around the room. Everybody pull out your phone, download Recycle Coach, put your address in here and tell 2 neighbors. And so we see in those communities, the residents become mini ambassadors for good waste and recycling behavior for their community, and ultimately then recommend Recycle Coach. But it's the feet on the street that are doing the hard work. We're providing the infrastructure.
Mhm.
Now we've talked to different recycling education or solutions where they provide education too. And one of the companies that I've followed closely, they say that they shame people for recycling incorrectly. Has there been any idea to maybe tell the people of Illinois, like, hey, Green Bay is recycling better than you guys. Detroit's doing better. Maybe you should step your game up, like make it a little competition, shame them a little bit to recycle more than their rivals that they're used to already.
Yeah, I mean, so from our perspective, ultimately, whatever works is what we're interested in exploring. I mean, we have an opportunity here, given some of our funding, to make some very meaningful progress in both the ability to enhance the recycling rate within Illinois, but perhaps more importantly, some of the interrelated climate impacts of having a more sustainable overall profile within our state. And so, to that end, I mean, if shaming based on the other teams in our division works, if there's other mechanisms, I mean, I'm all for being creative, because certainly what we've been doing to this point hasn't been what we need to keep doing going forward. And so our ability to be nimble and innovate in how we explain this to people is paramount to ensuring that this is something that we'll be able to maintain long term.
Recycle Coach does not have any plans to shame our users. We love our users equally, and I'd argue that our users are usually a little bit more invested in environmental issues and waste and recycling because they've now put this on their phone and come regularly. But we do in our analytics have some friendly competition. You're able to see the right rate of answers to our learning activities, the users by different platforms against your peers. We just don't expose the actual city names, but we do put it, when we onboard a city, we put in their population, and then in aggregate, we compare them to similar cities and populations. So when our success team is reviewing analytics, we do say, oh, your neighbors in the same populations are doing better than you, or you're doing better than them. So a little analytical competition never hurt, but we'll leave the shaming to the sports fans for sure.
There you go. I anticipate the press release that says something along the lines of Illinois does better than so and so.
And that's funny. That's funny too. You mentioned Recycle Coach saving marriages. Feels like there can be some friendly competition there among spouses there. So that would be pretty fun to do. Little friendly competition.
Nothing's more frustrating. Yeah, nothing's more frustrating than actually handling your waste correctly in your bins, you know, in front of your home, and then 2 weeks. And if you're on a bi-weekly schedule like we are here in Toronto, and forgetting to put your bin out and having to wait another 2 weeks. So I loved that quote. It wasn't mine. It was came out of a conference in Jersey, and I do use it. I love it. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, we talked a lot today between poutine and sports teams. All of this, do you have any advice or takeaways or final thoughts before we're coming down on time here? So I want to make sure you both get a chance to tell our our viewers, our listeners, about why they should recycle and what makes it so fun.
Well, so I will say the role that Jeff plays is a lot more fun than where I come in as the regulator. So I'll let him start off, and then I can weigh in from the government side.
Yeah.
So I come from the technology space, and one of the first things I did in my first year when I was appointed, when I led sales here at Recycle Coach, was I went and saw MRF. And I think, for you both as well, coming in from other areas of expertise, you don't appreciate the system in the industry until you see a MRF in action, until you see the hardworking men and women on the line pulling pieces of wood and batteries and shoes off of the line. And, you know, as a regulator, Director Jennings, I think you should make it mandatory that every high school kid goes to see a MRF, because there still is that it all goes into trash anyway. And so the myths, it's just annoying at this point when so many people work hard to, you know, really divert waste, make sure we're not hitting those landfill capacities. And so we continue to just forge our way to tell the why, and again, remain kind of waste agnostic, legislatively agnostic. We know many jurisdictions are going through EPR, and we're ready to support them, however, and advance those recycling systems and advance all waste systems before they are even legislation. And so, and we have fun with it. We have games, we have activities, and we engage our audience regularly. And so it's been a fun journey merging that utility with the education piece, making lives easier and also change behavior. And so, you know, we're just poised as an industry for so much positive disruption, positive innovation, and Recycle Coach is just having a blast being along for the ride.
So from the state perspective, I think that there's really two areas that make this both exciting and incredibly worthwhile. From a more individual perspective, I have kids. So I got a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old. This is the arena within the environmental regulatory sphere that kids can most relate, because the things like safe drinking water principles or air emissions are much more abstract. And so it's harder to relate to that type of audience. And that's where we end up seeing a lot of hyper engagement, a lot of great questions, and oftentimes the sparks for types of activities that we might take at a regulatory level that we wouldn't have thought of otherwise, because as people who've been in this sphere for a long time, you start to get a little bit blunted to some of the newer ideas that you can get from people around you. So the education and the captive audience is something that is really engaging and exciting on our end. From a broader environmental perspective, though, this is an area where we have an opportunity both for growth, an opportunity to directly impact the entire sphere of how historically we've operated our regulatory programs. Recycling impacts air emissions, impacts water use, impacts our overall natural resources portfolio. And so to that end, it is one of the omnibus principles that ties our programs together. But because of some historic barriers and because of at times some mythology around it, it's incredibly challenging. And so the concept of having to step up to the plate and attack a generational problem that holistically touches our entire portfolio in a manner that will impact people positively who aren't even yet born is incredibly exciting and engaging as well.
Well, thank
Well
you.
said.
Oh, sorry.
I said, well said.
For sure. And and you know, I'm just thinking back when we were talking about, you know, the holidays, and I'm like, you know, why did I even mention food waste or leftovers? I'm not going to have any. So but anyways, thank you, James and Jeff, for joining us. For more content just like this and more information on waste and recycling, check out waste360.com. Be sure to follow our podcast on Spotify and other podcasting services. Remember, it's our world, so let's not waste it. Thanks for joining us.